I'm Mike Toller.
I'm Brett Bader, and today we're doing an interview for County Board candidate
Joe Gottemoller.
Go ahead and state your positions and what motivated you to run in the first place.
Well, I ran the first time 5 years ago, and I ran originally because I saw things on the county board that I didn't like. What had happened to me that year is that the county board decided to, we're talking 5 years ago now, so the county board the year before that when I was running decided to take the maximum amount of taxes they could take. It was a terrible idea. Now, it may not have been a huge dollar amount to any individual, but if you think back to 5 years ago, you're in 2013, the economy in McHenry County probably couldn't have been a whole lot worse. In theory it was worse in 2010, but not by much. To give you an idea, at our height in McHenry County, they built 4,252 homes in 2002. In 2010, they built 252. So that's just about $1 billion in income that didn't get spread around McHenry County because there was no construction. So I'm looking at 2012 when we're running, and the board took the maximum amount of money they could take. And that's what virtually every governing body in McHenry County has done. It's one of the things that I ran on, and since I became a board member, not one single year have they taken the increase, the inflationary increase in taxes since then. And last year, we actually reduced the property tax burden. Not the overall tax burden, but the property tax burden from the McHenry County portion of the bill by about 11%. And that was the beginning motivation.
All right, that's pretty clear, concise.
Mm-hmm.
You got any follow-up?
To give you an idea of numbers, as of last year, that's approximately $26 million that the county has not collected from its taxpayers.
I like money.
Chunk.
I like money. Money's good.
Yeah. Well, most people I know would prefer it in their own pockets, not in the county's.
Definitely. So, I don't think I have any follow-up questions there.
No.
We're good? Thank you. All right, so on to question number 2. Do you have any conflicts of interest with being on the board? Is there any areas that you have to
There have been times when I'm a local lawyer. I've been a local lawyer since 1984. Prior to that, I was a prosecutor downstate. So clearly there are times when people that have had clients or whatever come before the board, I can't represent them. I used to do property tax appeals for instance. I haven't done any since I became a board member. It's pretty clearly a conflict in my mind that I would appoint a board and then go stand in front of them. I don't do that. I used to do zoning petitions at the county. I have not done a zoning petition at the county for obvious reasons since I became a board member. To give you an idea of how many zoning petitions I did, if you go look back in the 2000 range from really mid-90s until, say, 2005, I probably did 10% of the petitions that were in front of the county board. I don't do them. Now, on the flip side, when we're working on the Unified Development Ordinance, I've read a lot of those ordinances over the years. I actually knew what I was doing. I could bring a lot to the table that would help. But no, I don't. You just have to step out. That's it.
I appreciate that candor.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm expecting my politicians to do. So I guess on the next one here, your thoughts on cutting down the board from 24 to 18.
Okay. 2 years ago in 2020, I sponsored the first referendum that we put forward to say, would you like it reduced? The citizens of McHenry County voted something like 77% to 23 or something along those lines that they would like it reduced. Now we just had our meeting last week to talk about bringing it forward to reduce it to 18. I've made that motion and I voted for it. If it were up to me, it would be 12, but I don't have the support on the board to get 12.
Something that we've heard a lot of it should be 12.
Yeah, that's pretty much been the consensus of most people, and talking about it, it's been.
I don't think it'll go. I don't think it'll go through the board. Now, what you should understand about the process is this: it'll be on the ballot, I believe, in November. to reduce it to 18. Nothing prohibits, after the census, the board has the opportunity by a vote to reduce it or to increase it. Whatever they wanted to do, they could ultimately do it. I think that there's a strong argument that between now and 2022, when it would go into effect, that we can get it to 12.
So what are your reasons behind supporting the reduction in the board then?
Well, first and foremost, there's just way too many people in the situation. I mean, Illinois has a very unusual way of deciding this. For instance, if we had 1 million people in McHenry County, we don't. But if we had 1 million people in McHenry County, by state statute, we'd only be allowed to have 18. But because we don't have 1 million people, we can have as many as we want, which makes no sense to me. I mean, if 1 million people can be represented by 18, I don't know why 300,000 need 24. Right. Now, the second thing is when I this is the first year, so this would have been 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to the National Association of Counties Convention. What's great about it is you get to meet people from all over the countryside to hear things and about how things are done differently. I happened to meet by just chance, about 2 minutes worth of meeting, the person that's in charge of Los Angeles County. And the guy next to me says, "Do you know who that is?" I had no idea who it was. I mean, I'm in a room full of people, and the guy came by and shook my hand. He goes, "That's the guy in charge of Los Angeles County." I'm like, "So what?" He goes, "You don't understand. Los Angeles County is run by 5 people. It has a budget that's larger than 35 states. So if you ranked it as a state, it would be number 16. Right? And they managed to get along quite well with 5 people making the decisions. So I'm looking at this here at McHenry County going, really, by statute, I can't go below 12, but I don't see any reason why we just don't need that many people to debate whatever it is you're going to debate. You're going to get the same results and the same information out with 12 people that you would get with 18 or with 24 that we're using now.
All right.
I'm good there.
We're good. Ready for the next one?
Sure.
What are your overall views on consolidations, both for voting locations and township consolidations?
Well, those are really 2 very different things in different places.
Yes, they are.
Let's talk about voting consolidations first, okay? The voting consolidations, the basic reason for doing it was because of the financial costs in keeping all of the electronic gear and all of the county board stuff in order. And the election material in order. We didn't really get a great deal of input into it when the clerk decided to do it. But when you start talking about the money involved and how much it costs to buy each polling place, each place that wherever you decide to put a polling place, each one runs about $10,000 to set up for that day, between the equipment and the voting booths and the people manning it. So most of our electronic equipment at the county is being replaced, and it's being replaced because of the I have a cell phone.
Actually, I'm an election judge.
Yeah.
I just saw them for the first time yesterday.
Yeah. Well, and you know that that the old stuff was, is it 11 years old? It's something in that neighborhood.
It was actually decertified by the state, the old equipment. We couldn't use it anymore.
Yeah. Well, so
that's how old it's getting.
So now you start looking at, okay, I'm going to spend $10,000 per voting place. Does it make sense to combine them and to combine as many of them as you can? I'm not trying to, from my end of it, I'm not interested in, I'd love having lots of different places, but I didn't want to be in that. I at the same time, if you cut it from $150 down, or 130, I think is what it was, down to 60 or 70, you've saved $500,000 in equipment. We're all driving cars today. It's not the old days when you had to walk, to get to the polling place. It seems to me it makes sense to save those kind of dollars. And if you looked at it, you said they decertified it. I hadn't paid attention to whether they decertified it. I just know that it was in terrible shape. I know that the last election that I lost, it took me 3 times to vote for myself. And I'm thinking, great, this is
If I'm having this much trouble.
Well, they were actually decertified before the last primary election.
Yeah.
We had to get special permission from the state in order to use them one last time.
So you understand the general reason why. That's my understanding is why we've consolidated at least, and it's a question of funds. Do you really want to have another? All right. Chairman Franks recently made a proposal to expand. If you look at the state statute, the statute says precincts should have roughly 350,000 voters in them. It fluctuates, but it's in that range. That's about the center of the range. Well, I happen to be none to 15th precinct committeeman. We have 937 homes in my precinct. Trust me, we got a lot more than 350 voters with 937 homes. But to just break it up into 3 new voting blocks, spend $30,000 on a machine so that precinct could have, the same size, it would make no sense to me. I mean, there isn't anybody in this part of the world that isn't able to get to a polling place. And if they really can't, they can do it by mail. They got 3 weeks to send in the piece of mail and have it come back and forth. It's not a real time crunch. So anyway, that's on. So that's how I feel about it in terms of polling places. As far as consolidation, you got to look at what you're consolidating. There's a couple problems with it. Now I got in all kinds of trouble with the Bob Anderson crowd because I refused to put it on the ballot 2 years ago. And the reason I refused to put it on the ballot, if you looked at the statute then, it guaranteed that half of McHenry County was getting a tax increase. The way it was done at that point in time was, if you had, let's say, take McHenry and Greenwood, they're next to each other. All right. If you were to join those two, the way it worked was they would blend the tax rate. So, and I don't know which one's lower, but let's say McHenry was lower. Everybody in McHenry would get their tax rate raised because everybody in Greenwoods was higher and Greenwoods would get theirs lower, or vice versa, depending which way it worked out. So that was the first part of the problem. The second part of the problem is that there were plenty of easy ways to think about how you might combine McHenry County to make it simpler. I mean, look, let's face it. Originally, townships were created and they were 6 miles by 6 miles because that's what you could cover with a horse in a day. I don't think that's a reason to keep it that size anymore. But because of what Springfield had done, you couldn't put 4 of them together. You could only put 3 of them together. So you ended up with L-shaped precincts or L-shaped townships and things. It was just a complete fiasco. So if you're just talking about combining them to say, I'm going to have fewer numbers, I don't think it's any money savings. I don't think it does anything for you that way. Now, could you get by without townships altogether? Roughly a third of Illinois does today. But they do serve a purpose, and if you go, let's pick Alden for instance. Alden doesn't have any other organized government. So if there was no township in Alden, there would be there is no other local government. You go up to the county, and if you want to have, it just makes it very difficult to do it. Now there's some other versions of consolidation, of township consolidation going on. One was to eliminate the highway commissioner's office, or to consolidate it. I think you could do that. The problem that you're going to have with it is that if somebody runs and tries to do both jobs, I don't know many people that qualify for both building roads and doing public aid at the same time. I think it's really 2 different people. Now, you'd probably solve that by hiring somebody at a highway commissioner level, but it would give less input into it from the local level for the people here. But which way you go on it, either 6 of one, half dozen another. The other trouble you have is, and this was the one that was most recently proposed by Representative McSweeney and Terry Link, who's the senator, I think he's a senator in Lake County, and some others. That bill that got through the House and has stalled in the Senate at this point in time was really designed to just let McHenry County eliminate, or the townships in McHenry County eliminate themselves. And while I don't know that I'm opposed to having people decide to do that, I was very opposed at the idea that suddenly the county was going to pick up the task. The county's costs are dramatically higher because we're unionized. And so let's pick on Alden again, although I don't necessarily have any reason why Alden would do it, but let's pick on them anyway. If they voted themselves out of existence, they might have 75, 80 miles worth of roads. Under that ordinance, or under that statute as was being proposed, they would cease to exist in 90 days. So if they were on a November ballot, that means in mid-February, nobody's plowing the roads unless the county steps up. County's budget cycle doesn't run that way. So we don't even have the authority to spend the money on plowing the roads in February because we haven't had enough time to go through a budget cycle and hire the snowplow people to do it. That seems to me a rather poor way to go about trying to save money. Well, it generally snows around here in February, and I don't...
Just a bit,
Just a bit. and I just don't think it's a good idea to suddenly drop snow plowing as one of the government services we provide for, a lot of lane miles. I mean, I don't know what the lane miles are in Alden. In Algonquin, I think it's 67.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so they have the most lane miles
in the county.
in the county.
Well, they may. I heard 67. But to suddenly not plow 67 miles worth of roadway, I just
that's
don't
a lot
think
of people not getting anywhere.
That's a lot of people being stranded in a snowstorm, and I just don't think that's a really good idea. Now, if you passed it and said, okay, a year from now, I can get the budget together. We can do those things. We don't know from the county standpoint today. I don't know how many snow plows Algonquin holds or has. I don't know how any of the others have. I mean, I'm sure that the people in Algonquin may know, but how would the county suddenly know that? So again, if you're doing it as a money savings idea, that's probably not the place to pick it. Now, we can go to other things. Schools. You saw the newspaper yesterday about consolidating schools. Mm-hmm. Florida's not the only state. I believe there's several other states that divided school districts by counties. Whether or not you want to do that or not, you'd have to do it. That would start in Springfield. It wouldn't start up here. But right now we have at least there's 2, maybe 3 districts in McHenry County that are single school districts. They have one school building.
Yeah.
Those
that would be, I think, Aldrin, Hebron, and
I think this one right here as well.
There's one very close to you here, and then there's another one in Riley.
Yeah, because that's right up here. This I think it's a middle school that is in Wonder Lake here. That's just a single school in the district.
Yeah. So it never made any sense to me that you needed an entire administration to manage one school, and but that said, you go tell people that they're not going to run their own school, and that doesn't go over well either. But so let them decide that.
And that's where, as far as the school goes, one of the things that I always was wondering about, even growing up and going to the schools. I grew up in Richmond, Spring Grove, went to those schools. Was why did we have a superintendent in every school? Why didn't we have like a county superintendent that, and then there's like little, minions that did this area and that, that kind of thing, which just made more sense to me even 30 years ago.
Yeah, I was in District 300, so District 300 has, I think probably, and don't quote me on that though, I think probably one of the most schools in their district in the area. They
have like 20,000 students, so I assume they've got more than one building.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But yeah, so you look and see what does it make sense. Again, if you go back 50 years, 100 years, when most of these districts were created, actually 100 years when most of these districts were created, they didn't have a way to get between them.
Yeah.
Right? So, you're dealing with one-room schoolhouses. It made sense that you'd have a local board manage the school and go from there. We simply don't have that today, so we have never caught up with it.
My dad went to Spring Grove. It was 2 rooms. One for first through 5th, 6th through 8th.
And they walked to school uphill both ways in the snow.
He did.
Yeah. But that's excellent. So when talking consolidation on the voting locations really quick, I know one of the reasons that was given was that the schools themselves, to kind of draw both of those in,
Sure.
the schools themselves didn't want to have the polling locations in the school anymore for security concerns.
That has been raised with us too, and I don't blame them. I mean, let's look at reality. There's been a lot of problems in schools throughout the country, and why would you want to invite hundreds of people to line up at your door while there's a classroom going on?
All right. We're good.
Next question then would be, what is your position on privatization of the Valley High Nursing Home?
The Valley High Nursing Home was originally put together with a referendum, and the people in McHenry County voted for it, I think 60% to 40%, rough terms. I haven't seen it. I mean, it was 20 years ago, so I think more like 18 years ago, but something like that. So I haven't looked at it lately on that front. My sentiment is if people in McHenry County don't want to do that anymore, that would be certainly up to their choice. I'm not a big fan of privatizing something just to privatize it. I have no problem. I'd support a referendum to put it on a referendum, see what people want to do. But if you've been in it, it's probably one of the nicest facilities in northern Illinois. And it's, run by, last year it lost money, but in the last 5 or 6 years generally, it's actually made money. So that's the other part of it. I'm like, so I'm going to privatize something that's actually bringing more money in than's going out, and how am I helping taxpayers that way? So, but in the end, my sentiment is that people in McHenry County, if they don't want to do it anymore, they can vote to not do it and will not do it. But the last time they voted to take care of seniors and people that needed help.
All right. Pretty straightforward and right to the point. You got anything for that one?
I do not.
All right. On to the next one then. What part of county government would receive more attention if you win your election?
Well, I've just been there for 5 years. What I have spent my time on was planning and development, or now they call planning and environmental development, and transportation. The only thing that I would add to that is economic development. I think those are really the 3 areas in McHenry County that I would intend to continue to work on.
Any particular reason?
Well, I think that part of government's job is to make certain that the basis is there for us to service the economy so that people can get jobs and keep jobs. I know right now many people in McHenry County have jobs, but I also know that, with a couple hiccups in the world economy, we might not have those jobs. So I look at things from an economic standpoint of what things does the government provide that we can't provide for ourselves. Roads, transportation. McHenry County does have some benefits that most of the world may not realize. I mean, we're the number 2 county for education in Illinois. Lake County beats us, but otherwise we have the best educated population. We're 30 minutes either from Rockford or from O'Hare. In terms of internet, transportation, you can get anywhere in the world pretty quickly, and between those 2 things, it gives you a pretty good base. We also have the Midwestern work ethic. I will put 5 guys against any 10 on either coast.
I hear that. I guess this runs up into this next question then.
Sure does.
What do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in the county?
Well, if you'd asked me that 6 or 7 years ago, I'd say it was transportation. We have just about finished all of the capacity projects. By capacity, I mean when you have a road that just simply isn't big enough to handle the demand on it. If you go back to 2008, 2006 maybe, I think most people thought McHenry County was never going to catch up. Now, it's not the way I would have liked to catch up. I didn't really want to stop everything from developing in McHenry County so we could fix the roads. But we've just about done that. If you look around and see where the roads were, if you think back, you guys both lived here, think back to roads and what kind of mess things were in. I just look at Radcow, the bypass, Route 47 having interchange.
I remember when Randall out there in front of Jacobs was still 2 lanes.
Yeah. I do too. I remember there was only one stop sign between Crystal Lake and Elgin. Yeah. So, but clearly today that isn't the case. So, in terms of projects that they're working on, the Tollway Authority is talking seriously about taking over and getting 23 and 90 done, which will mean we'll actually have an interchange in McHenry County. I mean, right now we don't have one. People laughed about it, but so as a kid growing up, I grew up downstate, and the town I grew up in had lots of trains, and because it had lots of trains, they didn't think anything of why they needed the interstate when the interstate system was designed. And as a result, the town I lived in as a kid growing up was the largest town in the United States that was 25 miles from an interstate. I mean, they didn't think they needed it. They had trains. So now I'm in McHenry County, and I'm in the largest county in the state of Illinois that doesn't have an interstate access. I'm thinking, and by the way, we have trains too.
Yeah, right.
So that's just so that's one example. If you're going to have the biggest impact in McHenry County, and I don't think it's up to the county to make this decision in any way, shape, or form, 53's extension to up to Volo would be a huge impact on us. Huge impact on us.
Yeah, it would.
It changes everything. We're sitting in Wonder Lake right here. You would no longer go down to Randall to the interstate. You'd go straight east. 120 would get you there. And it would get you there in 5 minutes. You'd get to O'Hare 15 minutes faster. The estimates are, not that, if you're just talking a place to measure from.
Yeah.
It would cut off 15 minutes of drive time for you to get to O'Hare. It would change the direction that McHenry County turns in order to get to the interstate.
Hell, if you made 31 4 lanes between McHenry and Crystal Lake, I can cut about 5 minutes off my drive time every day.
Well, and that would help you. That would, and that is one of the things that the Tollway Authority has been looking at. But again, that's not the Tollway for a 31. That's IDOT, and I know IDOT has looked at it. You may or may not know it, but the head of IDOT grew up in McHenry, so it's nice actually having somebody there that knows
the area.
Knows the area. Not that we had anything to do with putting him there, but that he does know. I mean, he does know the area. He's familiar with it.
For me, and I'm an IT guy by trade, so when I think of infrastructure and capital projects, I think telecom.
Okay. Well, if you look at what the county did in the last 4 years with that, they've managed to find. They worked with District 200 in Woodstock and the city of Woodstock, the city of Crystal Lake, and the college, and they've managed to bring a fiber, high-speed fiber, all the way up through to the north side of Woodstock. And so that is there, that exists, and it exists only because the groups of the government entities decided let's try to bring that forward.
That's my understanding that though is for government entity use, not necessarily.
No, there's actually been a proposal on the table, and we've been taking bids as to people as to how they would do it, so that it would allow private access.
Excellent. And so expanding on something like that for the rest of the county would be.
They've talked to other government agencies saying, do you want to pick it up from a location and take it towards it?
Awesome. That follows up on my normal question with that one.
Yeah, that's about it for me.
See, we're ahead of you.
Yeah.
Once in a while, we actually think of things that we should do.
How about, should any part of the county budget be shielded from cuts? And if so, what?
I don't know why you would take any area and just say that's off limits. I mean, I would like to see, I'd like to make decisions on cuts one at a time. I don't know that I'm not a big fan of saying, all right, where everybody give up 10%.
Yeah, like a blanket cut. Yeah.
Because you don't get it, the places that really don't need to be there.
The reason is you often get some people who are like, I'll never cut from this and I'll never cut from that, and then I wind up having to cut from things.
McHenry County did their cuts based on employees. From their peak, which is back again 10 years ago, they're down over 250 employees. That's basically how they decided to save money. And when you look at what they used to do, again, you look at the technology. what used to, I mean, nobody today would think of storing all the paper in boxes. I mean, it'd be scanned, and it has been scanned, and that's what you'd use on your computer. But that means that one person can manage someplace that used to have 2 or 3 people doing that.
File clerks.
Well, but when you're talking about, the entity, I mean, the clerk system for over 950 years has been responsible for keeping track of birth, death rates, marriage licenses. That's been going on long before the United States existed.
Yeah.
And I don't see us ever, you can call it a different name, but you're still going to have somebody collect that information.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't talking specifically about the elected office of the clerk, just the job of people whose job it was to go run to the filing cabinet and go grab that piece of paper you needed.
Yeah. I'm good in here.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward to the point there. All right, final question. What do you think of the ICE contract with McHenry County Sheriff's?
Well, I think that it made sense to do. All right, so you go back, and this is before I was on the board, but if you go back, I guess it'd probably be 12 years, I think, in that range.
2005, if I remember,
Okay,
is the
so
first
not
contract.
too far off. Their original proposal was, at that point, we had a 4th floor on the jail that was basically unused. And it made sense to say, they came by and said, we'll build out the jail for you. In exchange, you house our people. And they did that now for a number of years, and we're still at it. The issue about ICE and immigration is 2 really separate things. Most of the people that are being held there are people that have criminal charges with them. They're not just people that just showed up someplace. So, does it make sense to have someplace to put them? Yes. Now, they're housed separately from the regular population. They're going to go someplace. We have the spare capacity because we had the foresight to actually, you have to look at what the projections were. In 2005, before the economy changed, we were growing at 4,000 homes a year. They fully expected by this time that they would have a demand for that. I don't know off the top of my head what the typical jailhouse population is any day in McHenry County, but it used to be in the 250, 260 range for citizens of McHenry County. The ICE was an upper floor, and they had anywhere between 100 and 200 was a typical day. So you're talking, most people I don't think realize that you're talking about housing 500 people on any given day. It's a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work. On the other hand, you're going to run one cook system. You're going to run one, adding an extra, dozen donuts is not really going to make that much difference. You're still going to need a cook, whether you just have a cook for the local citizenry or you're going to have the cook for the whole place. So in terms of financially, it makes sense for the county to keep doing it. Whether or not but whether or not I'm in favor of immigration or building walls or not, that's a whole different question, and that's not what we have much to say about.
That's right.
Yeah, no, that's not relevant to the county level at all. Mm-hmm. And these questions are only meant to be for the county level.
No problem.
So, no, I think I'm good on that one then.
Yeah, no, we're good there. Is there anything that we didn't ask you about
that you would care to talk about?
Yeah.
Well, I'm fine. If you have any other questions and you decide you think of something else, call me up. I'll be glad to help answer.
All right,
If
excellent.
you want to just one last time state your name, what you're running for, and your website or whatever else you got out there.
Joe Gottemoller. My website's gotjoe.com. You can find me there. You can also find me at the county. I'm currently on the county. If you really need to track me down, my cell phone's actually listed at the county. So if you're looking for me and you haven't looked too hard if you're trying.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming out and talk to us. And we might just take you up on that offer and ask you to come out and talk about stuff whenever.
I'll be happy to.
Excellent. All right, everybody out there, you have a good whatever time of day you happen to be listening to this at, and stay safe.